Undoubtedly, malnutrition is a very serious problem in this country, whether it's for children, adolescents, adults, even elders. Almost half of the country is suffering. There's no doubt about it. So the government has nutrition-related policies like multi-sectoral nutrition plan that talks about the public-private partnership, and also the last month of SON Global Gathering, which also emphasized on the importance of public-private partnership so that we can improve the nutrition in the country and elsewhere, as well as the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly Goal 17, talks about partnership. So these are the partnership approaches that have been proposed at the national and at the global scale to improve the nutrition. Well, the engagement of private sector has always been thought very critical to improve the nutrition, but has not been explicitly done as a tool to improve the nutrition of the country. So in this regard, I would first like to thank you all the panelist members for providing your time and effort. And there's one big question about these motives of private sector. The basic motives of private sector is to earn money, to generate revenue. So under these conditions, this is indeed a very hot topic to discuss. So let me first ask this question from the private sector, Mr. Hom Neopani. Now, first, can we improve the private sector role so that nutrition is improved? And if we can, how we can get the private sectors involved in the nutrition movement so that the entire nutrition program is moved forward in the right direction? Mr. Neopani.
Yeah, of course. Private sector, if involved, and if the entire basket can be involved, then it can produce a very big results. I think it's an opportunity for us. Rather than the profit motive, if we fortify our food, if we target all the population, especially poor or the middle class, then it will create a new ESV, new market segment. And the cost of fortification is, I think it's nominal. Currently, there is also a junk movement. People speak about the high calorie, particularly high carbohydrate, high salt, and the high fat foods. So if we can reduce those components in our regular produces, then that saving can be incorporated into fortification, and that can be targeted to the poor as well as the middle class people. And that's how private sector can contribute to nutrition very efficiently. But if you talk about the PPP model, then we need lots of homework. We have to create the win-win situation, win-win business model, or the win-win policies first, so that private sector first believe that the PPP model also can work for the nutrition, not only to the infrastructure projects, and it can create the wide spectrum results after the execution. Finally, addressing malnutrition issues is also a part of CSR of the corporate sector and the private sector, and we'll be more than happy to address these issues along with our CSR budget.
Now, the safety of these foods are directly linked to the malnutrition or nutrition per se. So in these regards, now may I go back to the government part and ask Dr. Matina about, as a food regulatory mechanism authority in the country, in your opinion, madam, what role does DFTQC play to ensure the safety of foods, particularly in regards to improving the nutritional state of children and others in Nepal?
Nepal government has been working, how to ensure all the food products that has been given to been consumed by our people should be safe and nutritious. because it is under our constitution, it is clearly stated that the food people has a right, fundamental right to have the safe food. So the FTQC is the Department of Food Technology and Quality Control, which is the food safety authority for Nepal. And this department is implementing basically two laws, food law and the feed law. And these two laws are interrelated because ultimately the feed that is provided to animal and poultry also comes to food chain. Ultimately, that's the thing. So we have been working on that line. One part is our legal framework. We are developing, that the food standards. We are continually working on it on one hand, and the other hand, and it's my pleasure to share with you that the food safety policy 2019 has been approved by the cabinet this very year. So this year is quite lucky. And we are very proud to have our food safety policy. Nepal has its own food safety policy. And, we expect that this food safety policy will guide all the stakeholders within the food chain, starting from the producers, that could be industry, that could be farmers, to the ultimate consumers. They have different roles. And how can we ensure this safety policy also talk about how can we train our manpower, how can we, what kind of safety policy we are going to take within a certain time period. And another point is a Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development has forwarded Food Safety and Quality Act bill, which is in the cabinet currently for the discussion, and we are hopeful that by the end of this fiscal year, maybe we will have a new Food Safety and Quality Act, which will be more based on the scientific basis it has, because the current Food Act was formulated in 1971, so a long time back, but still some of the fundamental things are still there, but with the development of the time, many technology has been there, coming to new kind of food technology are there, new technologies are there. So this law, with this law, there is a little bit difficult to work with, but we are hopeful that we will soon have a new Food Safety and Quality Act. And now the department, who is the responsible for implementation of Food Act in Nepal, is currently working mostly on the safety aspect. So we are giving more priority to the safety. When this Food Act was formulated in 1971, more focus was on the end product, and the adulteration was a big issue at that time. Yes, adulteration is still an issue, but our main focus is that the food has to be safe, and the safe from chemical contaminants, like with the intensive agriculture. We can see that there is a lot of use of pesticides, veterinary drug residues are there. We are hearing these kind of things now and then, but it was not the case 50 years back. Yeah, definitely the scene was different. So department is also working that aspect, and we have developed some of the horizontal standards, like on the chemical contaminants is in action. Chemical contaminants, microbial, and for the infant foods, melamine issue that we know that 5, 6 years back, that was a big issue on the infant food that was produced in China. So after that, last year we have had a melamine standard for the infant foods. We are taking this into account, and also the heavy metals and aflatoxin on the different foods. We have already done it. We are working on the directives. Since our Food Act is quite old, but still we have a new directives, which is based on the good manufacturing practices. So department is in that direction. Thank you.
Again, going back to the another regulatory system of this country, Ministry of Health. Well, we all know this. Again, we have been knowing the role of private sector is very critical, but also engaging with them, on the other hand, is quite delicate. It's quite sensitive. mainly because of this divergent and this competing interest of in the private sectors, right? Particularly on the profit earning, that may arise conflict of interest situations. So my question to you is, Dr. Gunanidhi sir, in your opinion, what regulatory mechanism should be built by the government which will prevent, identify, manage, and or monitor the potential risks of conflict of interest situations?
I'm pleased to be invited here on behalf of Ministry of Health and Population. Basically, we are working closely with the private sector as well. According to our constitutions, it is clearly mentions that we can work together, the state and non-state actor together for the benefit of the people. So, to ensure the healthy life of the people, to ensure the health of the people, so we have developed and endorsed National Health Policy recently, National Health Policy 2019. And it has clearly mentioned that we have to work together with non-state actors as well. Non-state actors means non-state actors in the healthcare sector, healthcare industry, and the non-state actors, non-healthcare industry. In the healthcare industry, there are many modalities in Nepal. For example, for profit making, private health institutions, and non-profit making organizations for not for profit. And similarly, other organizations which are not directly related to the health sector, but indirectly their productions, their business impact on the health. So regulation should be strong in one hand, but other hand, we have to collaborate together. Without mutual understanding, we cannot work together. So, Ministry of Health and Population has a strategic approach, that multi-sectoral approach. So, one ministry to another ministry, we have the health in all policy. All policy should reflect the health in their policies. And similarly, some of the examples we have already, Homnath sir already mentioned, that fortifications of the food, there is a junk movement. We discourage all the junk food. So we can collaborate. The private sector can cooperate with us. If there is a problem that the productions, the food available in the market, it adversely affect the human health, so we need to regulate that as well. So we are at the federal context, and we are developing some regulatory mechanism as well. And currently we have Public Health Service Act. It is also discourage unhealthy food productions, and it discourages advertisement of the unhealthy food productions that Homnath sir already explains about the high fat, high calorie, high salt, and trans fat. This is the current strategic directions from the Ministry of Health and Population.
He also mentioned about two words. One was junk, the word junk was there, and fortification. I will come to those two words in later section, but then, gentlemen and gentlewomen, I'm posing you a number, 88. 88. Now this number has big implications. The reason is that 88% of the countries are having multiple forms of malnutrition today, at this moment. 88%. And the Sun movement, of course, which we were very aware, last month only we had this Sun Global Gathering. This Sun movement illuminates the importance of nutrition as a global agenda. This is what Sun has done. And the Sun movement, in one hand, has a private sector attachment, a private sector branch known as Sun Business Network. of which one of the co-convener is United Nations World Food Program, WFP, including GAIN, Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition. So in this regard, we have Dr. Minas from WFP here. So I would like to ask you a question, sir. What approaches would WFP take to involve private sectors to ethically and morally manufacture, distribute, and or sell nutritious, healthy, and affordable foods?
I work with WFP, and WFP globally, we support two strategic sustainable development goals, SDG 2 and SDG 17. SDG 2 is ending all forms of malnutrition, and SDG 17, partnership for the SDGs itself. From all the evidences we have, program, research, symposium based, and one of the best thing all of us we agree is the best strategy, at least to address all forms of malnutrition, is multi-sectoral programming, multi-stakeholder engagement, and I'm very happy that Dr. Kran mentioned this morning, and also I want to take this opportunity to appreciate the government of Nepal taking a multi-sectoral approach. So with a multi-sectoral approach, meaning all has to be there, including the private sector. Historically, we failed to address malnutrition, used to be undernutrition. Now, over time, obesity, micronutrient deficiency, and we end up in all forms of malnutrition, both in developed and developing countries, in poor and wealthy. We blame the private sector to a great extent because they are contributors of, particularly for the obesity, increased obesity and diet-related NCDs as well. Also for micronutrient deficiencies to some extent because of the over-processed foods and things like that. So to address this is multi-sectoral thing, meaning we need to engage all sectors, and one of the sectors is the private sector. So as part of the global Sun movement, a movement which is led by the government, one of the network is the Sun Business Network, which is the only network which is supporting the private sector. So globally, together with GAIN, Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, we are co-conveners, and we provide technical assistance to the government. At the end of the day, all the programs are led by the government, and our role is to provide those technical assistance. So the technical assistance, particularly we focus on three things engaging on the Sun Business Network. Number one is convening networks, like whether it is small or medium enterprise or big enterprises, they have to come together and be part of the solution, because we are saying they are part of the problem. So unless we engage the private sectors, we can't achieve any of the nutrition problems. We blame some of the bigger ones because they are contributing for junk foods, food with high content of salt, fat, sugar, which is not unhealthy. But unless they are part of the discussion, we will not be able to address. So there has to be there, so convening. And there is an African proverb which says that to convince someone, that person has to be in the room. In most of the cases, whenever we develop policies, we develop and we try to regulate that policies without engaging the private sector. So one of the things we support is convening, bringing together private sectors with other development partners, with governments, so that they can discuss, prioritize their actions, and develop joint actions. I can give you an example. I will come to that one. The second priority area we support in this regard is assessing needs and facilitating partnership. Needs vary from country to country, even vary from partners to partners. The small and the medium enterprises need and the bigger enterprise needs are different from the private sector point of view. So assessing their needs and supporting them through partnerships, through training is some of the things we support. For example, small, medium enterprises, they usually need technical support. They need access to market. And the bigger ones, they already penetrated the market, so they need more of regulation, more of advocacy, more of conducive policy environment that encourage them to produce more healthy and nutritious food. So the second approach we focus is assessing the need and facilitating partnership. And of course, the third is advocacy for more engagement of the private sectors. As I said, it takes longer time engaging the private sectors. And we focus across these three thematic areas. particularly focusing on technical support to the government, to the private sector, to all aspects. Why we do this? There are some evidences, like private sector's involvement and role in the food system in general, in nutrition is there. They are embedded across the whole value chain, from production to consumption. This morning there were very good presentations, keynote address, how unavailability of highly nutritious foods are affecting consumption, economics, how it's affecting those kinds of things. So given private sector's role is embedded across the whole food value chain, we support at different levels based on the need. For example, private sector can play great role at production level, not only producing food, but making the food more nutritious, more accessible, more locally available, and affordable, because cost is the main factor which is driving our purchasing power. All of us, when you go to supermarket, we don't look into the nutrient content of a food, rather we look into the price. So if we are poor, we usually go for the cheap, and the cheap is not healthy most of the time. So if we engage the private sector, there is an opportunity of making that production more diverse, more healthy, and more affordable. In Mozambique, there is a private sector called Agro Macro, which involves in the production and distribution of milk and milk products at reasonable price in one of the provinces in rural areas. So this is a private sector, and the support, it's not directly supported by WFP, but as part of the global Sun movement, the Sun Business Network, and support of these things. With simple technical support, information, technical engagement, and that kind of information, this company is hugely encouraging consumption of milk in that specific province, which is a good thing. In storage, distribution, transporting, private sector play a great role. Like, we have evidence in most of the countries there's post-harvest loss, and private sector can play a great role. For example, in Nigeria, I don't know if you attended during the Sun Global Gathering, there was the founder who was sharing his experience, the KCCL, KNO cold chain logistics, and it's a private sector working on cold chain. So the role in nutrition is not seen most of the time, but what this specific agency, private sector was doing, was trying to transport food from producers to the consumer in a fresh, without being damaged. So people in the rural areas, they produce their fruits, and because of this company, it links to the market, to the rural areas. So there is huge loss in terms of, huge benefit this company is producing in terms of preventing post-harvest loss, maintaining the nutrient quality of freshly food products. So overall, I'm talking a lot. The role of the private sector is huge, and the solution is we need to engage. And when we engage, it has to be country-specific, need-based, and they have to be part of the solution itself.
Thank you, Antene. I mean, that was a very good explanation. Few examples how WFP is working with private sectors. Now, again, I would like to ask Dr. Sharma about if Ministry of Health precisely has been working with private sectors in delivering some intervention programs in the country. Dr. Sharma, please.
We are working closely with the private sector as well in the public health interventions, some of the, but with the healthcare industries and non-healthcare industries also, because they have a corporate responsibilities, and we are working in some of the activities. But with the healthcare industries, we are working together, for example, in the public health program, immunizations, and similarly, during the disasters, we work together, and then for the hospital preparedness, these areas we are working together. And basically, and we are also developing a partnership in health guideline. Currently, it is under the process of endorsement, and we would like to collaborate with private sectors to work together in the public health and other interventions areas as well. And finally, I would like to say both private and government, state and non-state actors, we have a common goal that the profit making or non-profit making organizations, our main objective is to support the health and well-being of the people. So we have the common goal, so we can collaborate together.
Thank you. Thank you for the examples. Now coming back to one of those two words that Dr. Sharma had previously used, junk and fortification. In Nepal, the word junk is a buzzword. Everyone talks about it. The foods that are sold in the market, available in the market, are known, at least in this nutrition community, as junk, since they have high calorie, high fat, high salt, low nutrient. Madam, this is for you. What you think, people say this is a junk food. Your response, please.
As we know, all of us know that for the growth and development of, like cognitive development of the children, they need different nutrients. And for that, they need to eat different varieties of food. They have to take those food. But if some food becomes so much addicted, those children, when they become addicted to one product and they stop eating other products, that's the junk food. It's a kind of thing that we cannot say that, okay, like you have said, rightly mentioned, that mostly these foods are snack foods, which is easily available in market, and they are attractive in their packaging. So children are easily attracted to them, and they start to, and the parents are compelled to buy for them. And these are mostly fried products, dry products, and fried with a lot of salt either, or they are sugary products, which is also not good when they take large amount in it, and if they take it every day from morning to evening, then it becomes a problem. So we cannot blame our industry. Only the industry are not responsible, so the junk food, I don't know, as a junk food, how can we control it? Maybe we can control we can educate parents, we can educate schools, like Dr. Sharma has mentioned, that there may be, some of the health policy that we can, under the Ministry of Health and Population, they have a different divisions like child health division, family welfare, that we have to educate our parents and how we can make children not only, that they have to take the other foods, good foods also. So that's the issue. And I think anything, if we take, like in a small amount, everything is poisonous. Like there is one saying that if everything is poisonous if we take too much. So it has to be within the limit. And maybe we can put some like a statutory question, like we can assign the portion size and then make parents, okay, you cannot, one cannot eat more than this one. And so there is no official definition currently, and our food law also has not defined it yet. And I don't think we will be able to define it. Thank you.
Indeed, we don't have a legal definition of junk food. This is one of the most important things the audience, I think, have taken away in their minds. Well, for those non-Nepali cultured people here in this hall, we have a term in Nepali, in Sanskrit to be precise. We call it Sattvic, Rajasic and Tamasic Bhojan, right? We have this term, isn't it? Tamas is very close to junk. Now coming back to as another word, Dr. Sharma, thank you so much. You are really supporting us. Me, in fact, the word fortification. That was what was used by you. I would rather like to talk to Antonia, since WFP is very much closely working with this fortification.
When we decide with fortification, number one, we need to define which food vehicle to be fortified. So that is a food which is commonly consumed in that specific country or in that specific society. Maybe in Nepal, rice is the staple food commonly consumed, not only in Nepal, but also in different parts of Asia. Rice is the most commonly food. So in that case, rice could be one of the things we can fortify. In other countries, it vary. Maybe in my own country, we consume different kinds of food, so we fortify cooking oil, because oil is something that goes to different food for cooking purposes. So the key consensus is a food which is commonly consumed, and then the fortification has to be led by country-level agreed criteria standards, and there has to be regulation. It is not just fortifying in the living, but there has to be standards, like what level of fortificant has to go to that specific food. It's something we need to decide at country level, based on consumption pattern, based on the nutritional status, and based on other ecological factors as well. So there has to be a national level technical working group which decides that. And it has to also be monitored, because it varies from time to time. The amount we decide 10 years ago might change because of various factors. So monitoring and strengthening the local capacity of laboratories is also part of the fortification. So to answer that question, is a food which is commonly eaten by the specific countries. If you give me 2 minutes, particularly linking with junk food definition or whatever, it's not easy. We have, all of us, we have common terms of understanding how was the junk foods, but it is one of a challenge, a problem that public-private partnership can address, I think. We have an example in Zambia with support of the Gates Foundation, that WFP and trying to support the government to come up with food labeling, good food logo. They call it good food logo. The idea is, as I said before, even the nutritionist, when you go to supermarket, particularly when we buy processed food, we don't look into the nutrient content. Even though we look into the nutrient content, we don't know whether it is in that food, whether it is written on the paper, the thing. So that food labeling, a good food logo, is a private sector driven, guided by the government, the academician, and the like. They have standards, and they are coming up with a logo which can be put in front pack of any processed food. And any consumer, when they go to the supermarket, they check that logo, and they say, okay, this food is safe for me in terms of safety, in terms of having the required nutrient, the threshold, at least the minimum and the maximum level of threshold. So having that kinds of thing is something I think we can help also in Nepal, and help protect the consumers from that kinds of risk. At the same time, help the private sector, that it is a value for them. If they increase the quality of their food, they can also have market opportunities. They have trust from the consumers. They can penetrate to the global market. So it is a win-win kinds of things that we can, I think, consider in a country like Nepal. Thanks.
Thank you, Antenna. Now coming back to the CSR part with the private sectors. Now this is also an opportunity for private sectors. With we have government officials here. We have non-government people who have been working in nutrition here. What exactly do you think, in your opinion, does private sector need so that they can develop a very coherent partnership to improve nutrition in this country? Mr. Neopani, please.
Thank you. To be very particular, we need infrastructure support, and government can exempt tax on machineries or equipment or laboratory equipment or so on, number one. Number two, we need technical support. We need advanced laboratories, manufacturing facilities, standard operating practices, and the standardization of those practices which are tested in the developed countries or elsewhere. And if the cost of fortification or additions of the certain component is high, then we will also need financial support from the government or any international communities who has been working for long. So financial support can be a certain tax exemption, maybe 1% exemption on income tax or 2% for those companies who fortify their regular foods as per the regulations set by the government. Or even the government can execute the differential VAT, value-added tax system, to differentiate the companies who are under fortification basket and who are not. Then after that, probably we need the scale-up opportunity, because in the beginning, we will start up with one community or two community, one producer, two producer. Then for scale-up, again, we'll have to come into the same cycle, but with a larger size of the pie. So I think these tools, the infrastructure, the techno-commercial support, and the VAT exemptions or the tax exemptions will definitely work for the private sector to move ahead, either single or through the PPP model. Thank you.
One question basically to the government officials. Briefly, Dr. Sharma, first you. Briefly, very brief. What do you see the future of public-private partnership to improve nutrition in this country?
I see the future is bright if we have a common objective to support for the well-being of the health and wealth of the people. So we have the common ground. So if there is a need of enabling environment from the government side, we are there. But we also would like to get some benefit from the private side. That is, you make profit, but that profit should not adversely affect the health of the people. That is the main.
Thank you, sir. Your response, madam.
Currently, we don't have a mandatory nutrition leveling, but to make people aware about what nutrition it has or what they should take. The nutritional leveling part, we can work on it, and the Department of Food Technology is continuously working with the private sector also, to develop the guidelines, to develop the standards. We are sitting with them, and we are discussing with them, and we are studying the international trend also. So we are continuously working private sectors, and I think they have a very huge role. We are just there, watchdog. They are the main heroes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, one thing is very clearly understood. Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Health, they both think the future is bright. This is one thing is very clear. The private sector needs some support, technical support, moral support. UN organizations like WFP and other UN organizations are there to support the country so that we can move forward in the right direction. One thing is for very sure, we are here to say no to junk. That is for sure. Whether it is junk food, whether you call it feeding, whatever you call it, we have to de-junk the junk. That is undoubtedly true. We need public-private partnership so that we can move forward in this direction, so that the nutrition status of the country and the world is in the right direction. That is for sure. This is also very essential. And finally, with the support from the Ministry of Health, from the Ministry of Agriculture, from the private sector, and from the UN organization, we believe that in coming days forward, we will be moving in the right direction. Having said all that, I would like to thank everyone, the audience, the participants, and the panelists once again, and the organizer for having this very hot and sensitive topic to discuss. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.